Ellis.
One of your reporters called and asked about what was happening at the Ellis Island.
Okay,
and we just heard from Barry Cunningham that Liberty Park in that area is going to be set up as a virtual field hospital.
Like MASH units.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that, please?
Well, Liberty is a state park, and Ellis Island is a national park. And we understand that Ellis Island is being used for some of the injured. They're passing through there, being treated, and then being taken to hospitals from there.
Can you give us a description of what we might see if we were able to see it right now? Do you know what the scene is?
No, I can't because I'm in Philadelphia and I don't.
Oh, in Philadelphia. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Well, as far as you understand what the procedures are in something like this, does the National Park Service have contingencies for such events like this when you actually are called into this kind of service?
Sure. Yeah. We have law enforcement rangers and EMT people who are trained in emergency medical, and so they would be helping.
All right, Kathy DiLeonardo from the National Park Service, thank you very much. We will hopefully be able to at some point get out in the area of Ellis Island and find out more about this for ourselves. It appears that really what's happening as far as trying to get medical help to the many people injured here is that they're taking many of them away by water, by ferry, over the Hudson River, literally stopping on Ellis Island on the way, and in other cases continuing on to Jersey City to Liberty State Park that Barry was talking about there. In many ways, because of the traffic and the congestion and the problems of getting everything up north, it appears that they're taking the water route, which is the clearest route to get people over to New Jersey.
And you wonder if they practice things along this line. I'm sure that this was never expected, anything this devastating, but they have been ready for all kinds of terrorist activities. Nothing on this, magnitude.
Nothing on the scale, of course.
But it sounds as though they're being pretty well organized.
You know, we cover all the time drills. That the City Emergency Management Agency runs in case of such a terrorist event like this. I think one of the ironies about this is that the multi-million-dollar emergency system that was inaugurated, I think, about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, is located where? In the World Trade Center.
That's right.
And therefore rendered fairly useless today, and they've moved to other locations temporarily.
Okay, we're going to visit another hospital. We're going to go back to Joe Chaffee. He's at Nassau County, at the Nassau County University Hospital, I believe it's called. Joe?
Correct, Heidi. We are still waiting the burn victims, 7 or 8 burn victims that were being transported by ferry to Glen Cove, and then, and this is where it gets a little hairy with respect to information because communications have been very, very difficult between here and Glen Cove, whether they are being choppered in or whether they are coming by land route. But everyone is still on standby. We have doctors and nurses at the emergency room door waiting for them. We have quite a bit of security, bomb-sniffing dogs. They're not taking any chances here at Nassau University Medical Center. They're checking every car going in and out. Earlier, we reported that they had stopped accepting blood donations, but I have now been told that they have now started again. If anyone wants to give blood, they can come until 9 o'clock this evening, and then again tomorrow morning. But as of now, they are now again accepting blood donations for anyone that wants to give blood. We are just in waiting for either a chopper or the string of ambulances to bring the burn victims. They have up to 200 beds ready if they need to take on additional victims later on tonight. Heidi?
Joe, thank you. We just got bad news, more bad news on top of bad news. The Tower 7, the building,
one of the other buildings,
the World Trade Center that we said was leaning and in danger of collapsing, has just collapsed. And so
I think you'd see when you looked at the Tom. Can you get us the long shot from Midtown again? I think what we actually saw there was, there you go. Yes, you can see if you've been watching, you can see that the smoke had kind of taken on certain patterns. Well, now it's got a whole new pattern out there because another building has collapsed. You can see that the amount of smoke and debris going up into the air has increased once again. So now 3 of the 7 World Trade Center buildings do not exist any longer because of today's terrorist attacks, and we understand that one other of them is still burning, still on fire.
You just wonder what in the world is going on there. We can't get close enough really to see what is happening right now.
Yes.
The rescue effort is going on, has been going on since 9 o'clock this morning, and now in the middle of all of this, we have yet another collapse, and God knows how many other.
Well, that is where the heart of the story lies. Certainly, what we don't know is how bad is it. No journalists, no cameras. That's the view south from City Hall.
It looks
That's as close to ground zero as anybody's been able to get right there once the police lines were set up. And as you can see, the canyon's still filled with choking smoke and dust. We just don't know what the situation is there. We don't know if the building collapsed on people. We don't know if the evacuation procedures took them far enough away from the buildings that the collapses perhaps didn't do as much damage as we fear
more
they
emergency
did.
workers going into the area to help out.
So much is unknown right now, particularly the thing that we all care about the most. What is the casualty count?
Exactly, and how many people are going to be saved? They're just right now concentrating on that, hopefully rescuing and saving as many people as they still can.
That is the object at this point. As you've heard Mayor Giuliani say, so many other matters are going to have to be put sort of on the back burner while we simply try to save the people who are injured. From what we understand, hundreds of people were critically injured, many of them burned, taken to St. Vincent's Hospital, taken to further outlying hospitals that have expertise in burn treatment. And that is going to be going on for some time. And I think, Heidi, that the effort to recover both bodies and perhaps survivors somewhere in the midst of that rubble is going to continue on through the night, much as we've seen before when we watched a coverage of earthquake rescues. You see the dogs going in there to see if they can detect anything, the listening devices going in to see if there are people still alive in there. I suspect we're going to be seeing, I don't know if we'll be seeing it because I imagine the police are going to keep a pretty tight cordon around everything there, but I think that may be the situation to take place tonight and into tomorrow as well.
Well, you see how empty the streets are right around City Hall, that live shot we just had, and I think people are cooperating. You know, sometimes in situations like this, you do get people running sort of to the scene, trying to get close, this is not happening. It doesn't seem to be happening this time. The police have asked that you please stay out of the area. They have apparently just recruited civilians, people who just happen to be there, some construction workers, whoever, to say, please tell people not to go past this point. And people are listening, they're cooperating, they want to not be a problem. They want to stay out of the way.
Well, I think everybody is so taken aback by the sheer horror of this event, the magnitude of this event, that everybody is. You heard what I can't remember right now who said it a little while ago. I guess it was our correspondent in Washington, saying that all members of Congress, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, are lining up unanimously in support of whatever the president wants to do in response to this situation. I think it's much the same way here in the city. People are hearing what the emergency management people, what the mayor is saying, and only too happy to try and comply and help things out.
And here we see people still continuing to stream out of the city, out. Very few people coming in, of course. Everyone trying to leave now. Apparently some of the bridges are open, and some of the, I don't remember what the Midtown Tunnel is open.
The tunnels, I believe, are still closed.
Are still closed.
Certainly on the Hudson side.
People are slowly leaving by car, on foot, any way they can.
And a lot of ferry services. Ferry service is really the one thing to even stay reasonably intact.
And again, look at the haze and the smoke. And look.
Actually, you know, keep like there it is, Heidi, right there.
This is live right now.
We had a shot of that
same
scene
just moments
about
ago.
20 minutes ago, and it was clearing up.
Yes.
In fact, Larry Hoff, who was standing on that spot, pointed up to the sky and said, "It seems as if the smoke is dissipating." And he pointed the camera up. We could see blue sky.
That's right.
Now, since the collapse of World Trade Center Building Number 7. The dust and the smoke have returned. You see people are wearing their masks once again.
These people look exhausted. I think they're trying to spell each other as much as possible. I think I heard that the firefighters were trying to spell each other every 15 minutes so they get rinsed off, hosed off to get some of the dust off of them.
Right.
So they go back in there, go right back in there and continue fighting.
Well, it's going to be a long night for a lot of people. So they're going to have to spell each other as best they can. That is the closest shot we've been able to get. I think all helicopters are down out of the air right now. We actually kept ours up for a pretty long time. It's a total no-fly zone, except for military aircraft. So this camera shot you're seeing right here is about as good as the TV stations you're going to be able to get live. You can get no closer than that, and you can see from that perspective right there, it is still a pretty hairy situation.
And again, to reiterate, New York City schools at this moment, anyway, are open tonight. There's our reporter,
Jackie Hyland.
Jackie Hyland, getting into position for obviously a live shot. We'll be going to her in a little bit. But the New York Archdiocese Catholic schools, they are all closed tomorrow. All of them are closed tomorrow. Of course, museums, the Washington Monument, all those landmark buildings, they have been shut down.
Yes, anything that could remain a possible target, I would think in Washington and New York, is going to be closed down tomorrow and for the foreseeable future.
Do you think it's time to do a wrap up of a timeline again? Do you want to go
Sure,
through that?
sure,
For
definitely.
those of you who might just be tuning in, although I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I'm sure you're
that
aware
we don't
of
know.
things by now, but in case you were taking one long nap, we got an unpleasant surprise for you. About 8:45 today, it all started when Tower number 2 rather, of the World Trade Center was struck by a plane, the one on the right there. About 20 minutes later, another airliner, a 767, crashed into the tower on the left. There you see it, slamming with unbelievable force, literally coming through the building. Not exactly cutting it in half, but you see the result that came eventually. The building collapsed. First, Tower 1, a little later, Tower 2. You're looking now at the Pentagon, where if you look over on the right side of your picture, of course, the Pentagon, the famous five-sided, which is what a Pentagon is, five-sided building housing all the military services, attacked also by a hijacked plane on its west wing. Out-of-control fire was burning. We have heard that people were killed in the Pentagon. Nobody from the Defense Secretary's office, who was on the other side of the building. And now you're looking at additional pictures that if you've been joining us this afternoon, you've probably seen a few times throughout the day of when the building started to collapse, people in the area left with little to do except run for their lives.
All right, we saw Jackie Holland earlier getting in position to give us a report, and I understand that she is ready right now outside City Hall and give us a brief update on what's going on down there now.
Jackie?
Kai, Jim, just a few moments ago, an unbelievable scene down here as 7 World Trade Center collapsed. And as you can see right now, we're in the aftermath of it. Thick black smoke behind me. The ash is beginning to settle. And it is a pretty frightening scene. Let me tell you, I was right here on the sidewalk when the building collapsed, and all I heard and all I saw was a group of police officers running for their lives, screaming at anybody in the way to get out of the way. The building was coming down. There aren't too many people down here right at this time because most people have gone home, except for a lot of emergency personnel. Actually, Steve Alvarez was down in the thick of it. You saw it, you heard it. Tell us what you experienced.
It's something that you never want to see. It's just horrific down there. Parts of the World Trade are still standing. There's rubble everywhere. We were working down there trying to see if there were any survivors in areas that were safe for us to continue to work. Fires are burning all around in all the surrounding buildings. It looks like something out of an Armageddon movie.
Did you have any warning that this building was coming down right now?
Well, we did have warning that it was coming down. They would start to clear the area out because they had actually let this building burn. It was just burning so much out of control, and firemen just down there just decided to go ahead and let it burn. As some of the other buildings are in the same condition, they're just letting them burn because it's just more than any one force can contend with.
Weren't you scared, Steve? I mean, you were right down there when the building came down. Did you run for your life?
I ran. I got out of there as soon as I could. I was scared.
Now, you're working as a National Guard down here?
I work for IBM. I'm here on IBM business, and when I saw the buildings collapse from Brooklyn this morning, I'm in the National Guard as an officer, and I came down to see what I could do to help.
And what have you been doing?
Well, we've been clearing debris down there, trying to find survivors, and we've actually did find one survivor. 2 firemen went down and found one in the lower level of the first building, and miraculously, the man looked like all he had was a broken arm and bumped and bruised pretty bad.
So you're saying that firefighters, New York City firefighters, found a survivor in one of the World Trade Centers just a little while ago?
Just a little while ago, they sure did.
And he was alive and well?
Alive and well, and he seemed to be in fairly good condition.
Right. Where are you headed to now?
I'm going now to a hospital to give some blood, and then I'm going to go try to meet up with my wife.
Okay, thanks very much,
Sure
Steve
thing.
Alvarez. And that's pretty much what the mayor and all the city officials are asking people to give blood. Again, 7 World Trade Center just collapsed a few moments ago. Mayhem down here in Lower Manhattan, and we're going to toss it back to you right now.
Jackie, thank you so much. We just got word in that so far the total of people killed or injured in the attack on the Pentagon, 100. And these are just early
They suspect 100
numbers.
people killed.
100 people killed or injured.
And this comes as a surprise. Frankly, the early word that we got out of there was that there was a fire and that there had been some deaths, but certainly nothing on the scale of the word that we just got.
Okay, we do have Nassau County Executive Thomas Galata on the phone with us right now. Tom, can you hear me? Tom? Mr. Galata? This is Kaidi Tong. Can you hear me? I guess maybe we lost contact with him. We're going to try to get him. We understand they're mobilizing.
He's mobilizing some emergency forces there
to bring into Manhattan to help in this fight to save lives. What are we looking at right now?
Well, it's another look of the view where Jackie was just standing. You can see that already, just in the last couple minutes from the most recent building collapse there, it's that now the air once again
is clearing.
But from what she said and from what the gentleman she was interviewing said, it's going to happen again because, as we understand, as he said, other buildings, the fire department is powerless to do anything about.
They're just letting them burn.
They're letting them burn. And the end result of the burning, especially if they were damaged severely by the towers falling, is that those buildings also are in danger of collapse.
Again, this is right outside City Hall and Center Street, where we've been doing a lot of reports from, where you get just about as close as you can get to ground zero at this point.
All right, I'm told that we
smoke.
have a counterterrorism expert on the telephone, a man named Boris Gano. Mr. Gano, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Tell me a little bit about your field, first of all, before we start talking.
Okay, I am the director of the International Policy Institute for Counterterrorism in Israel at the Interdisciplinary Center. It's a university in Israel.
Are you in Israel right now?
No, I'm in San Francisco, as a matter of fact.
All right, you're in San Francisco. All right. Tell me what, as a person who studies terrorism, who fights terrorism, what are your thoughts and what are your feelings as you watch the devastation that's taken place here today and in Washington?
Well, I think that my thoughts and feelings are not different from the thoughts of any American citizen today. It's a combination of horror and sadness altogether. Trying to analyze it from a counterterrorism expert, I would say that maybe this is a combination of primitive attack and very sophisticated one together.
Could you elaborate on that, please? Because we have been hearing about the sophistication of this particular attack from other experts.
Okay, so let's start with the primitive side of this attack. I refer to the technological side. The terrorists probably didn't need to use any sophisticated weapon to smuggle huge amount of explosives and so on and so forth. And therefore, from a technological point of view, this is a primitive attack. But I do agree that we can see here a very sophisticated attack, and I refer especially to the planning of the planner of this attack.
Are you talking about how getting the pilots on board? How about getting the planes? Yes.
Exactly. I believe that this kind of terrorist attack needed to be planned long ago. The people has to be trained, and we are talking about several units which should have been attacking the airplanes simultaneously. It's a combination of two kinds of terrorist attacks at the same time. One of them is kidnapping the airplanes, and this is a separate attack for his own. And the other one is using this as a flying bomb into a suicide attack. Planning all of that, it's really sophisticated, and I believe that there are not a lot of terrorist organizations who are capable to do that.
Well, what terrorist organization do you think is capable of it? Osama bin Laden, of course, his name has come up. Does this have his handwriting on it as far as you're concerned?
I would say that, of course, we should not jump to conclusions until we have concrete intelligence information. But as I said before, there are very few terrorist organizations which are able to execute simultaneously such an attack. As a matter of fact, 4 attacks altogether. Probably, I believe they had, I can guess that they had pilots with them, because it seems to me very far-fetched to believe that any pilot would be ready to crash into the World Trade Center.
Well, let's focus on that for just a moment, Dr. Ganor. It appears that what we're hearing is that this caught everybody by surprise. In fact, more than one congressman has already cited some sort of intelligence breakdown in the fact that there was no warning of this. So let's get to that issue of terrorist pilots. Does the notion of a terrorist pilot capable of commandeering a jetliner and steering it themselves into a terrorist target. As a counter-terrorist expert, was that anywhere on your menu? Was that on your map? Did you guys sit around and talk about the possibility of terrorist pilots taking over airplanes?
As a matter of fact, the answer is yes, and I think we didn't invent it. You just have to see the movies that the Hollywood has done, and you have it there. So what we see, the terrorists see as well, and it's a scenario that counter-terrorist experts had in mind. To say that me or any other of my colleagues had the feeling that such amount of atrocities are going to be simultaneously against New York or any other city in the United States, of course, it won't be true. But then again, it's not really a huge surprise because, as I said, it's not really complicated to execute that.
Well, it's not complicated to execute it, but certainly American airline passengers hope it would be somewhat complicated to organize this, to get those terrorist pilots on board those planes, and to be able to conduct the commandeering operation that put them in the pilot seat in the first place, correct? I
do agree. I think that the main defensive failure, we see here two kinds of failures, intelligence failure on one hand and defensive failure on the other hand. The main defensive failure is not by defending the World Trade Center or the Pentagon House, in my view. It's letting 4 units of suicide attackers to take over 4 planes simultaneously. This is grave, grave failure.
That is really the point I think we have been focusing on. The kind of airport security that Israel has, you say that you're Israeli, compared to the kind that we have, we're obviously going to have to learn some lessons here.
Yes, unfortunately, Israel has a lot of experience in trying to fight air piracy and air terrorism, and Israel is investing a lot of resources in order to defend the national flying company of Israel, El Al. I wouldn't say that this is not possible with the Israeli plane as well, but it will be very more difficult to execute such an attack.
Dr. Ganor, we appreciate you joining us. Dr. Boraz Ganor, counterterrorism expert, normally based in Israel, joining us today from San Francisco.
Let's go back now to Lolita Lopez, who's standing by on the Manhattan side of the 59th Street Bridge, and see what's going on now. Lolita.
All right, Heidi. Well, the movement has been a little bit slow today. Coming out this afternoon, cars are still going by, people are still walking, but not as much as before. It's very quiet feeling out here as people are leaving the city in Manhattan. Let's show you some video here of some cars going across the bridge. As they're saying, as you can see, traffic has slowed down quite a bit, but it is coming through, as it will continually throughout the evening. We did talk to a police officer here who has been routing people that way, and they said that is the way that it's going to be. We also have some people walking across that show you that as well. They have been continually doing that, evacuating the city of Manhattan and going off from the 59th Street Bridge here into Queens. Now, we do have some updated information, transportation information for some people. Holland Tunnel is still closed. Lincoln Tunnel, outbound to New Jersey, is open. GW Bridge, upper level, that is also open, going only outside of Manhattan. Staten Island train into New Jersey, also open. LIRR in both directions open out of Penn Station and Grand Central Station with limited service only. Subways, the letter lines are running. The 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, and 42nd Street shuttle, those are running as well. The LIE is also running, but westbound exit 61, that's where it's going to be closed down. Now, of course, people are trying to get residents and other people that live outside of the boroughs that have been stuck in Manhattan all day to their families. And we have seen about the only people that have been coming in here are construction equipment and emergency technicians, nurses. We did talk to an EMT who was walking across the bridge. He's coming from Long Island to get down to Chelsea to help those injured there. Here we see some more cars coming through this way. Kenny Hogan's going to turn us that way. More cars leaving this area, and as we said, of these cars leaving, construction equipment has been coming through. We've seen 5 rolls of phone cables. We also saw a crane from Con Ed, and we also saw demolition equipment, construction equipment, presumably to go downtown and pick up some of the debris. We're live at the 59th Street Bridge. I'm Lolita Lopez. Back to you guys in the studio. Patty?
Okay, Lolita, thank you very much. We have a number of cancellations. Of course, you talked about schools tomorrow actually going to be open, New York City schools as it stands right now. Major League Baseball has been canceled tonight for the first time since the death of Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1945. The Major League Baseball has scrapped its entire schedule for this night. There was to be a Yankee game, and that was canceled first.
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly.
And then later on, Commissioner Bud Selig decided, out of sympathy, and I'm sure there was some, strategic and precautionary measures
large
too.
Groups of people. That's why Disneyland also was closed.
Exactly. Canceled all the games tonight. No baseball tonight.
Okay. Well, we've been overwhelmed today by the sights and the sounds of what has happened, this devastation, this cataclysmic tragedy. And
we've collected a little bit of what we've got.
So if you would just watch and listen, this is what happened today.
Today we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
I still can't get over the building suddenly being there and then suddenly not. It was just an awesome, awe-inspiring sight. I've never seen anything quite like it myself. And it's very strange to look over Manhattan right now, see the Empire State Building, and continue looking down it, and the World Trade Centers are completely and totally gone.
The number of casualties will be more than any of us can bear, ultimately. There are a large number of firefighters and police officers who are in harm's way, and we don't know how many we've lost.
At that moment, there was already a lot of fire going on up there, and I saw five people that I counted jump off. They look like rag dolls, really, because we're so far away, so far up, and it was just right unbelievable. These are the type of things you see in the movies.
We were on the 34th floor of this building right here, 48 Wall Street, and we heard an explosion. We went up to the roof and we seen one of the towers on fire. So we're up there actually watching the tower on fire, and another plane comes in and hits the other tower, and there was like a ball of flame so big I couldn't believe it. It actually, you felt it in your face.
This is a vicious attack upon New York. It's an attack upon America. It's an attack upon the whole concept of freedom and our way of life. And we cannot let these attacks succeed.
We said, "Would the Yankees win the World Series again?" It was like a ticker tape parade. We were joking around, and then we looked out the window and realized that the building was on fire.
I heard the whine of a jet. An American Airlines jet hit the tower.
Is it an act of war in your mind? I don't know that I want to use those words. I think the president is the one that has to respond, and I think what he has to know is that all of us in New York support him and support him completely in the efforts that he's going to have to make over the next couple of days, week, and to make a point that that people can't do this. You can't attack innocent men, women, and children.
Just some of the images, the sights and sounds that will be burned into our memories forever. We're standing by waiting for a live press conference that's scheduled for 6 o'clock with Mayor Giuliani and Governor Pataki. Again, they're going to give us an update on what's going on.
Right, those comments you just saw were an hour and a half ago. They're going to, in the neighborhood of 6 o'clock.
Exactly.
They'll get back with us again. On the phone right now, we have John Ritigliano. He is with New York University, NYU. He's a construction expert there. Mr. Ritigliano, thank you for joining us.
Hi.
What can you tell us in terms of your area of expertise, the structure of buildings, the construction of buildings, about what we've seen today, about what... let me ask you this. Did those towers have a chance after those airplanes hit them?
Not very likely, because they were hit with a lot of fuel. The fuel had a huge fire. I could see it from my office. And once that fire got going, they really didn't have a chance, because the the sprinkler systems that are in the building were overwhelmed. They were totally useless, and eventually the steel got up high enough in temperature. You know, steel, when you get above 700 degrees, it loses its strength, and the columns just collapsed. And once those columns collapse, they take the building with it.
From looking at the pictures that we've been watching all day, we get the impression that these buildings sort of imploded. They sort of fell in on themselves rather than outward. Is that the impression you have from looking at this?
It's hard to say. You know, I've been in the office all day. I haven't seen any photos. The only things that I could see was from my office. I could see when the second plane hit, I could see the plume, and when the buildings collapsed, they were kind of obscured by all the smoke. So I really couldn't see what happened.
In the world in your world, and people who work with and study major building construction, do you talk about this? Is this a contingency that, as you get your training and as you get your experience, that you even think about a building of this size being destroyed before our eyes?
No, you know, you can't design for something like this. It's just, you know, nobody would be able to afford to put up a building. It just gets to be too expensive. You know, as it is, you're prudent with your designs. You know, you do your fireproofing, you put in your sprinklers, and you know, you can take care of most things. But something like this, you know, it just overwhelms everything that you've designed for.
So all the safeguards that were put in, obviously, after the 1993 explosion, none of those things would have had any impact on what happened today.
No. It just was too much, and I think from what I had heard that they had taken transcontinental flights, which gave them a tremendous amount of fuel, which gave them a lot of burning power in the buildings.
Do you believe that this, and this is asking you probably a little bit too early to look way off into the future, but do you think this is going to have an impact on the people and on the construction of skyscrapers in America? Is this going to bring a whole new element of thought into putting up these big buildings?
It's hard to say, but as I said before, you know, as it is, construction is very expensive, and to try and design for these types of contingencies, it just would make it so expensive that you wouldn't be able to build a building that high. Maybe that's our lesson. Maybe we build them too high.
Mr. Rutigliano, we appreciate it. John Rutigliano is with NYU, a construction expert there, one who oversees the construction of buildings on NYU. We thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. We go back now to City Hall Park, where Jackie Hyland is standing by live for us. She's right outside where the buildings have collapsed. She's as close as
we're going to get.
Jackie.
Jim, Heidi, just a very short time ago, World Trade Center 7 collapsed here in Lower Manhattan. You'll know that houses OEM, the Office of Emergency Management. The bunker is in there. It collapsed, and as far as we know, everyone had been evacuated from the building a little earlier. Now, let me tell you, when this building went down, there was mass confusion, chaos down here. I looked around, and all I saw was a wall of police officers running for their lives and yelling at everyone and anyone in the way to get out of the way and seek shelter, find cover somewhere. And now, in the aftermath of it all, thick black smoke, and again, the debris is falling. There's white ash everywhere. We're told that it, of course, contains asbestos. That's why we're all being asked to wear these masks to cover our faces when we're breathing in. I'm going to call in Bill Rosati. He was here when it all happened. He saw it for himself. Bill, if you can just tell us what you saw, what you heard.
I was standing like 2 blocks away, and all of a sudden I just seen a big flash, and then I seen the building coming down, and I just seen people just running everywhere, chaotic like.
You must have been frightened.
I'm still frightened. It's pretty chaotic here now, you know. Whoever did this is a real sick human being, so.
Why are you down here now at this point?
I came down here this morning to see, actually started out looking for work this morning, but then since I was down here, I figured I'd stay to see if I can help somebody out, you know, do my share to help out at all, you know, whatever it takes.
Describe some of the experiences that you've witnessed throughout this day.
I see a lot of people running around with soot and stuff all over their bodies. A lot of people are wrapped up in bandages and their heads and arms and stuff. I just see a lot of people standing around taking pictures and you know, just running away from this area, and that's pretty much about it.
All right, thanks very much, Bill
you.
Rosati. Now, I also want to point out that we've heard that it's not over yet. Apparently, there may be other buildings that will be coming down in this area. So again, everyone is being asked to stay away from this area. We're here in this little area right here, and mainly we're just here with other members of the press and police officers and firefighters. Some of them are absolutely exhausted from what they've experienced today. We're all trying to drink a little water because, as you can imagine, it's difficult just even to swallow when you're breathing this kind of stuff in. Jim, Heidi, back to you.
Put your mask on, Jackie.
Mask back
Put your
on.
mask
We'll see you a little bit later.
Okay, we're going to try one more time to hook up with Tom Galata. He's the Nassau County Executive. And are you there now, Tom?
I am, Katie. Thank you.
Great. Tell me, first of all, your impressions and how you felt when you heard about this.
This is one of the most horrible and cowardly acts I have ever experienced in my lifetime. The thoughts and prayers of all of Nassau County's residents go out to the victims, the injured, and the families of this terrible, terrible tragedy. And frankly, I join with the governor and the mayor in supporting the president and the Congress in whatever retaliatory acts they deem appropriate once the perpetrators of this horrible crime are determined.
Tom, what are you doing in Nassau County to help the people here in Manhattan? Are you mobilizing all your emergency people, sending them over here?
Yeah, in Nassau County, our emergency management is currently at level 3, which is the highest level of county preparedness. We've doubled our police patrols. We have special surveillance on buildings that we've determined to be sensitive. We have staged, at the request of New York City, hundreds of pieces of fire equipment that are being deployed to New York City as they are being called upon to special areas of the city. We've also provided emergency service units and 5 Marine units to New York City. I must tell you, one of the most tragic aspects and heart-wrenching aspects of this are the phone calls we're getting from county residents whose family members worked at the Twin Towers or who simply are trying to secure information with regard to their loved ones. And the equivalent of Nassau County's emergency management, as you know, in New York City was located at the Twin Towers. And so as a result of that, there has not been very good communication, and we're trying through other sources to secure whatever information we can for the loved ones of the injured and the victims.
Mr. Galata, thank you so much for joining us tonight on a terrible, terrible night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to run through some of the school things. Well, let me tell you some other items coming up tonight. First of all, Kaidi, we've been saying, and I believe it's still the case, Mayor Giuliani and Governor Pataki are expected to brief the press again in the neighborhood of 6 o'clock, just really moments from now, but that may be a little bit later than that, but we'll bring that to you live.
Show you what was handed to us just now.
Special edition of the Post.
The front page of the Post, special edition. It says, terror, just destroy World Trade Center.
And then 9 o'clock tonight, President Bush. We have gotten confirmation now that President Bush is going to go on national television tonight to address the nation about this tragedy. Now, you've been keeping up with the school situation a little bit more. Let's take a look at what the young folks have tomorrow.
All right, so here is the very latest. This has changed throughout the day, but right now the information we have is this, that public schools in New York will be open tomorrow, except for the New York Archdiocese. Their schools are going to be closed. The New York Archdiocese, until further notice, I assume, but definitely closed tomorrow. And the spokesman for the Archdiocese, Joseph Willing, says the schools outside of Manhattan, the Bronx, and Staten Island will then reopen on Thursday. But again, I suggest that you call your kid's school and see what's going on individually.
Right, everything is in flux right now. Do we have Jerry Hauer on the phone? Mr. Hauer, Jerry Hauer, you will recognize Jerry Hauer if you watch local news in New York at all. At the site of virtually every mishap, disaster, collapse, breakdown, he was there. He was the director of the Emergency Management Office up until I think about a year ago. Mr. Hauer, are you with us?
I sure am.
Tell me about, you were there until about a year ago, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You as much as anyone, is responsible for the operation of New York City's Emergency Management Office through some pretty tough times in recent years, but now this. What, as somebody whose job this is, what did you think when you saw this morning?
Well, this is an absolutely devastating event. I mean, this was an attack on the country. This was a very calculated attack by cowards that was designed to kill many people. I think that when you look at this type of an incident and its potential impact, it's got significant ripple effect. But I think at this point in time, we have to look at how we can help the families, the victims, the many firefighters and police officers that were lost today. And I think the focus really has to be on that. And in due time, I think that our federal government, the president, has vowed to go after the people that perpetrated this horrific act, and I think we have to have faith in that.
When you were in that job, running the emergency management office, and you would sit around and brainstorm and think of worst-case scenarios, which I know was really an important part of the job, was preparation for anything that might happen. Did you discuss something like this?
We discussed major incidents. We absolutely did. We discussed incidents with hundreds and hundreds and thousands of victims. One of the reasons that we entered into mutual aid agreements with New Jersey and with Westchester, Nassau, Suffolk County was to have medical resources, police and fire resources readily available for an event that just created large numbers of casualties. The event that occurred today is almost surreal. It is just hard to imagine an event like this occurring, but we're dealing with from a very, very difficult group. These groups are cowards. They do these kinds of things, and they want to try and shake the foundation of this country, so they do these kinds of acts.
Mr. Hara, as you were saying, the most important thing right now is the rescue effort and to save as many lives as possible. What you've seen so far of the way we've been handling it, how New York has been handling it, what do you think of the response?
Well, I think the mayor and the police commissioner, the fire commissioner have done an incredible job. I think that all New Yorkers ought to be extremely proud of what's gone on here today, particularly recognizing the fact that we've lost some very heroic firefighters, police officers that were in the building who were in there to save the lives of New Yorkers. And I think all New Yorkers can be very proud of the emergency services today. This is a difficult day, and it will be difficult for the months to come. But I think that the city has responded magnificently.
A final question, Jerry. You, I believe, were instrumental in setting up a state-of-the-art disaster anti-terrorism center, which was located in the World Trade Center, correct?
It's 7 World Trade Center.
Have we lost that now?
We have. We looked at where to put that facility. We looked underground, and when we looked underground, we were very concerned about water main breaks, which we had 600 of every year. We were concerned about locating it in various facilities, and there is no facility that is 100% safe.
Are we handicapped now, though, in trying to do what we have to do the next few days?
There are backup plans, and they have begun instituting those backup plans. They have alternate command centers in place, and are using them.
Jerry Hauer, former director of the Office of Emergency Management, a man familiar with disaster, although nothing like this. Thank you very much, Jerry.
Of this
My
magnitude.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. We're going to go back now to Glenn Thompson. He's a reporter standing by at Bellevue Hospital. More victims are being brought there every minute, I guess. What's going on right there, Glenn?
Well, Kaidi, we're told that the injury count here now is up to 154. Now, 20 of those injuries, I'm told, are quite serious.